Usually people have to hear this music on a CD,
Recording, yeah.
but to hear it out of human voices in the presence of the singers, it's just quite different. Good morning, this is Father James Miska. We're coming back at you with another episode of Coffee with the Callers, and of course I'm here with my trusty parochial vicar,
Father Doug Jeffers.
Padre, good morning.
Good morning, Father.
And we are so happy to have with us this morning a special guest, our Director of Sacred Music here at St. Louis, Mr. Rick Gabriel. Rick,
Welcome.
good morning.
Oh, thank you. Good morning, Father.
Welcome. We're coming at you from the gallery of our main sanctuary, and I will tell you that I've given us pastoral dispensation to have our coffee
very good.
in the gallery. We will not be taking it down
No,
to the sanctuary.
Of course not.
So we're here this morning because we want to talk to you about a very special event coming up in Holy Week called Tenebrae. So Padre, you've done a little bit of book work on this.
That's right.
Where'd you come up with on Tenebrae?
Well, Tenebrae is part of the Liturgy of Holy Week, and originally Tenebrae was the Office of Readings, and what we call that the Office of Readings now, Matins and Lauds, kind of the night prayer and the early morning prayer of the Church from the later part of Holy Week. But they were celebrated during the darkness, during the night, and of course that name Tenebrae means darkness in Latin. And the theme of them is the Passion of Christ and the kind of darkness descending on the world, and the imagery and the music and everything is very evocative of this sense of kind of wonder at this thing that has happened, that Jesus Christ has died.
Exactly. So at St. Louis, we have celebrated Tenebrae for many years, and Rick, of course, as our Director of Sacred Music, has been at the helm of many of those celebrations. So Rick, this year, tell us a little bit about what you're looking forward to in our Tenebrae celebration.
Sure. Well, there's three things I really like about Tenebrae, but one thing that happens every year if you go is you hear the strepitus, which is this loud sound at the moment of Christ's death. And it's evocative of the tomb closing.
And it happens at the end of the service.
At the very end of the service,
Yeah.
in complete darkness. And then musically, we've got two beautiful works that are very famous in the music world. The Lamentations of Jeremiah by Thomas Tallis, and the Miserere by Allegri.
I mean, I have to say, these are arguably two of my top 5 choral pieces of all time. So Thomas Tallis, one of my favorite composers, he came from the Tudor period, is that correct?
That is correct, and he was an interesting composer because he was a Catholic composing in the time of a Protestant England, but Elizabeth I gave him some special protection so he could write this music on these Latin texts.
So this beautiful piece, the Lamentations of Jeremiah, I mean, it's so perfect
It is.
for Holy Week and for Lent. So tell us a little bit about that piece.
Yeah, I think because the text is very, it's this sighing and this is coming back to God and the separation. He writes with a lot of dissonance and a lot of these imitative phrasings that really evoke the sense of pain and the separation from God. It's very powerful to hear.
And then during that piece of music, there is a part that says, "Come back to me."
Exactly. At the very end, convert and come back to God. It's just a beautiful text for Tenebrae.
That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
And then, of course, the second piece.
Yeah, the Miserere.
well,
Yeah,
all
I
right.
know.
Tell us. Father Doug and I talked about it on Coffee with the Callers
I know you did.
last time.
Well,
Tell us what you know about this piece of music.
Well, Allegri was an interesting person too because he was a priest and a singer. Kind of grew up in the church. At one point, he was even hired to sing in the Sistine Chapel as a chorister. But this work is notable for a couple of things. One is the way it's structured is you get a line of the chant that you'll hear the tenors and basses sing, then the full choir, and then a quartet. And it keeps repeating. But what people really know it for is this quartet because the soprano, which would have been probably a boy at the time, has to sing this high C, which is like dog whistle high, over and over and over. And it's very, very amazing to hear it. And especially because we haven't done it in the chapel, it's just going to be incredible. So that's one thing that people know it for. The second thing is it was written in around 1638. And it was very special to the Vatican. It only came out during Holy Wednesday and then Good Friday. But they didn't release any copies. There were only 3 authorized copies, and no one really had access to them. And even then, the authorized copies were not like the actual sung music.
I guess because they wanted it to only be sung in the
Exactly.
Vatican.
It was
This
very
like
special.
A treasure for the
Exactly.
Vatican. Yeah.
So fast forward 140 years. 140 years. It's been like this. It rolls like this for about 140 years until a young 14-year-old boy named Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart happens to visit the Sistine Chapel for Holy Wednesday. So he sits there and he's listening to the Tenebrae service. He listens to the Allegri Miserere, goes home, writes it all out from memory, and then realizes he wants to go to hear it one more time on Good Friday just to make any corrections. So he writes it out on Good Friday, and that's how it gets out into the world. And then what's really interesting is like a lot of 14-year-olds, like they win the science fair or they get a Bluebonnet Book Award. He wrote this work out, which was noticed by the Pope at the time, Clement the 16th, is that right? Number-wise?
Taxing my memory.
Okay, Pope Clement. Pope Clement.
I have
Okay.
to look that
I'll
up.
have to check the number. But he gets wind of it about 3 months later, knows that this young boy has written out this transcription and says, I want to meet this kid.
Yeah.
So he does, and he gives him an award. And then at that point, that was kind of his resume builder. He met a lot of international musicians at the time, and it was one of the many notches in Mozart's belt.
Fantastic.
The Pope was sort of more impressed than irritated about the
Yeah,
music.
yes, he let the secret out. But yeah, more than anything, he was really impressed that well, I think he also recognized the genius of God's working through Mozart.
Sure.
And that's really what I think he was
Yeah.
most impressed with.
Well, that's great. Well, so we're really excited about the music, of course, for Lent. St. Louis is well known for its sacred choral music, and it'll be in our chapel on Tuesday of Holy Week at 8 o'clock. I promise you, if you come to this service, it will be a moving experience for you, and it'll be a wonderful entree into the Triduum. So thanks for joining us this morning on Coffee with the Callers. Rick, it's been great having you with us. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
By the way, we're not supposed to be eating cookies during Lent, but I will tell you that Eileen Rosapal, she made us these ricotta lemon cookies, and I would say that we're going to just couch this out of pure charity. We're going to eat these cookies because we would not want to deny her of sharing her cookies on Coffee with the Callers. So a ricotta lemon cookie, Padre, Rick?
Thank you.
So thanks again for joining us on Coffee with the Callers, and we look forward to seeing you next week as we drop Coffee with the Callers every Friday morning at 10:30 on all of our social media networks. Have a great Lent.
It's very good.
Delish.